I'm recording this video straight after another one. My brother's home and he might be a bit loud today, but we're going to forgive him today, unlike Sunday. Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I want to talk about reading more slowly. So this year I have noticed a tendency within me not to read books as quickly as I might have done last year. And in doing this, it's allowed me to read some bigger books on my shelves, such as The Eighth Life by Nino Haratischvili and David Copperfield. And I wanted to talk about the conflict I have felt in not reading as many books this year, but in reading slowly and more slowly than usual, how it has perhaps changed the way I am also looking at the books I am reading. So I will be talking about David Copperfield a lot here, but if you wanted to know more about that, I do have an entire reading vlog dedicated to destroying this book. So it's been a funny year, hasn't it? And December is a time for reflection, but I began reflecting on this particular topic when I recognised I wasn't reading as many books a month. And despite the fact that I can still read rather quickly, I'll open a book such as The Lollipop Shoes and I can get through like 2 pages a minute with this with ease, but I've decided to read this slowly as well. And I recognised that I was taking more time with the books I was reading this year. I don't know why it happened. I don't know whether it's just that I have taken on more this year, even though I've been out of work a lot of the year due to being furloughed, I have still continued to create YouTube videos. I have been writing a novel. Well, I've been writing 2 novels. I released a book as well in February. I did that. I forgot that for a second there. I started learning Italian again and making time to do the things that I enjoy. So going for a lot more walks in forests and stuff. And that doesn't really lend itself to reading. And there was a time in the last few years where I went through this phase of thinking how I could still ingest books without, if I didn't have the time to read them. So such as when I had my concussion end of 2018 into the start of 2019, I was listening to a lot of audiobooks, and then I had a really big period of illness at the start of last year where I was listening to a lot of audiobooks as well. But whenever I was going on walks down the canal or walks with my sister, I was always, well, not with my sister, whenever I was going for walks down the canal mostly, I was listening to an audiobook. And dependent on the length, I could be listening to that for about 2 hours a day. And so I was getting through a lot more books last year. And perhaps wasn't thinking about them as much. Then, earlier this year, I was taking part in the BookTube Prize as a judge. And so that meant reflecting on books more and perhaps pulling them apart so that I could rank them and send those rankings and reviews in. And let me find the book. When I read The Eighth Life by Nino Haratischvili, I was really enjoying this book, but I still put sticky notes in to tell me when each section would end and would go about reading a section a day until we got to a really huge section, and then that took me a while. But this was probably the first book I read slowly this year and has gone on to be my favourite book of the year. And when I read that, it made me want to take more time on books. So I chose to annotate my copy of David Copperfield, because I've been thinking about annotating a book for a while, and I knew that I could separate this book into sections, which is what I did. So I separated it into about 30-page sections, and then would read those pages each day and annotate them. And this process of reading more slowly meant that I ended up having a different experience when it came to reading the books. And this different experience is that sometimes, as with David Copperfield, I would get different emotions for characters, and it would heighten and strengthen certain feelings I had towards certain characters. I'm still upset that I didn't get the homoerotic relationship between David and Steerforth that I envisaged. But hey, you can't have everything in life. His wife was definitely a beard. Anyway, this process of reading more slowly, at first it upset me, because I was thinking I have all of these books on my shelves that I want to be going on with, and I hadn't got through half as many books that I wanted to this year. This year I started acquiring more books as well. Previously I would have gone to the library and got them first, but libraries have been closed and I haven't been venturing out of the house. And so it's this acquisition thing and this reading that hasn't happened as quickly as usual. Like I say, at first I was sad, because I was thinking I'm part of BookTube, and BookTube really likes and puts an emphasis on reading a ton of books per month. And even I've done it. I've congratulated people when they've read 40 books a month. And then I began to think about how they're looking at those works of fiction. Well, then I began to think, I need to stop comparing myself to other people. And I need to stop looking at what other people can achieve and what I am trying to do in my life and what I have going on. And then I realised that through reading more slowly, I have actually begun to better understand what an author is trying to get at. I have been picking up on more symbolism. I've been reading into books more. I have been noticing links to other things, and whether or not they match up with other people's thoughts on a book, it doesn't matter, because if I like a book for a certain reason, someone else can like it for a different reason, or they can dislike it because of that same reason. And I keep forgetting that. And I keep forgetting that other people's opinions don't matter when it comes to how I read a book. And I've begun to recognise the benefits of me reading more slowly. And I'm sorry about the rambling nature of this video. It's really just my thoughts on how reading more slowly has really helped me become more involved in the books I'm reading, and it's also helped me to think more when crafting books. In terms of, let's think of a book now. In terms of A Wreath of Roses by Elizabeth Taylor that I read back in August, that is a very short book. And previously, I could have read that book in one sitting, not really thought about it, been like, yeah, really enjoyed the prose here, and missed how much I was enjoying the prose. This time round, I would go back, and if I was really liking a piece of description, I would reread it. I would think about how Elizabeth Taylor was crafting this description, and she was writing it in such a way that it really matched the tone and the mood of the characters, and how it gave this atmosphere so that the reader would feel a certain type of way about the events going on. So whilst nothing was explicit and overt in that book, the reader is able to feel this tension, and the writing makes you feel a certain type of way. And I would have just blasted through that and not considered that at all previously. In terms of David Copperfield, slowing down and annotating it made me notice all of these things that were perhaps more important to me as a reader, but it also made me reflect on the other works by Dickens that I have read, and how he seems a bit obsessed with death and time in his works, especially in A Christmas Carol. If you compared David Copperfield and A Christmas Carol, you could talk about death and time in that way because of the ghosts and the fact that you have the bells ringing, and when the bells toll, the ghosts come and they take Scrooge away, the past, the present and the future. You get that, and I feel like with this story you're getting a lot of different ideas as to how David's life could have gone, because you do have a ton of orphans. And yes, I still need a book of ragtag orphans with a touch of magic. And I've really enjoyed this period of reflection that reading more slowly has allowed me. It means that a book sticks with me more. It means that the characters stay in my head for longer, and images from the stories are sticking in my mind. And I suppose buddy reading helped this as well, because when you're buddy reading a book with people, they're reading other stuff as well. So you come together to analyse it, and sometimes you haven't fulfilled the pages, sometimes you don't have the wherewithal if you've been at work to speak. So you've constantly got to think about the thoughts more to remember them for when you're coming back and you're chatting. And this analysis and this slowing down, I think, has been really beneficial to me. So I think that in future I'm going to continue to read more slowly. Now, obviously there are books that I've powered through because they really amped up the tension for me. I still think I'll read thrillers very quickly. But yeah, I really think that this year has seen a change in my reading habits to someone who's reading more slowly, more measured, and more considerate about what I am reading. And I'm glad about that. And also it really works well for me in terms of life, because it's more calm and more sedate, and I don't feel like I'm rushing through everything. Of course, sometimes I can still have those moments there where I'm thinking, you've been on this book for too long now, you need to move on. But for the most part, I am quite content with reading more slowly. And I think that that's really going to help me next year with the plans I have for my reading of Anthony Trollope and Dickens, and reading more Victorian literature. But I have a whole thing to talk about reading plans, a video planned about reading plans. It's fantastic. Anyway, I'm aware that this video has been a bit rambly and nonsensical, because I haven't properly thought about my thoughts before coming into it. So do feel free to ask questions about reading more slowly in the comments. If you read more slowly, or you read quickly, tell me your thoughts on reading slowly, or not. And I hope that you enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.